Well, hello again. It's nice that you could tune in to Vimeo or YouTube. I'm Maurice, and I've got another study in the 6,000 Years of Babylon series. I've written 5 books to cover the series, so this is like the handbook. So I suggest you read it. There's lots of illustrations and pictures in of the one world system, and you'll find it very instructive, I hope. Well, we're in the middle of the studies. There's maybe 50 studies. We're up to number 30 odd. And we've looked at Daniel in the lion's den and Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego in the time of Nebuchadnezzar. But I want to look this conference, there's 5 studies, at Tyrus and the prince of Tyrus, the king of Tyrus, and the anointed cherub, because the king of Tyrus is called the anointed cherub, so who's he? So I'm hoping I can shatter a few of your doctrines, because a lot of church doctrines are not based on the Bible, the Greek philosophy or whatever. So let's look at what the Bible says, and you can agree or disagree with me. The first study is the city of Tyrus. You know, cities are very important in the Bible. When you're a student, you just read the Bible and you read the parables and the Psalms because they're nice and you get encouraged. But when you get a bit deeper, you realise that colours are very significant, numbers are very significant. And cities are paramount importance, because the bride of Christ is a city, New Jerusalem. Revelation, I saw New Jerusalem coming down out of heaven as a bride prepared for a husband. We make up the holy city, the bride of Christ. We have to stand before Christ, all those who are saved, to account for deeds done in the body, not for salvation. That's a done deal. You're saved. And that's the great white throne. Your name's in the book or it's not. But before that, before Jesus will reign for 1,000 years, he's got to decide who reigns. You can't have all chiefs and no Indians. The church think they're all going to reign. You can't have millions of people in the government for the one world. 144,000 could govern the world, couldn't they? There's a number to think about. So we'll all have to stand before the judgment seat of Christ, whether it's wood, hay and stubble. This is how you've lived as a Christian, or gold, silver, precious stones. When gold, silver and precious stones make up the bride. New Jerusalem is, the foundations are 12 stones, aren't they? The streets are paved with gold. The gates to get in are the gates of suffering, the pearl that's formed through suffering. So, depending on whether you pass the test, whether your works are burnt up as a Christian or you've got gold, silver, precious stones, you'll be the bride. So, the cities are important. What's the opposite of New Jerusalem, the bride of Christ? The whore of Babylon. They're both women. A city is always a woman. New Jerusalem is the bride. Babylon is the whore of Babylon. In Revelation, come and I'll show you the whore of Babylon. So it's interesting, but I want to look at Tyrus. What does Tyrus represent? Because it talks a lot about it in the Bible. Well, Tyrus was in the Phoenician part of Israel. I think it's still called Tyrus, or Tyrus and Sidon. Well, Egypt is a type of the world. I think all theologians will accept that. When you go to Bible college, they say Egypt's a type of the world. We're redeemed out of Egypt, like Israel. We're redeemed out of Egypt. We're redeemed out of the world. And Pharaoh is a type of Satan, the god of this world. And we've looked at Babylon, and Babylon is the counterfeit city. So it's the false woman. New Jerusalem is the bride of Christ. Babylon is the whore, the counterfeit. Don't forget, the counterfeit looks like the real. The whore of Babylon looks like the true bride of Christ. We think the whore is some prostitute on a street corner, haggard and on heroin. The whore of Babylon is a high-class courtesan. So she'll drive a Porsche. She'll have fine clothes. She'll speak. She'll be educated. Well, I'm talking about the sort of women that kings and millionaires go with, not cheap prostitutes. This is the whore of Babylon. And when you read the description of the whore of Babylon, it's the same as the bride of Christ. She's clothed in red and purple and the colours of the tabernacle and pearls. She looks like the bride of Christ. But in a cup is filthy abominations. But you wouldn't know. Looking at the woman, you wouldn't know. Don't forget the devil comes as an angel of light. So the counterfeit, if I want to counterfeit a £5 note, I wouldn't make it pink, because everyone knows £5 notes. I'll make it exactly the same to deceive you, but it's false. So the counterfeit church looks exactly like the real church. They may preach salvation by grace, they may preach all the right doctrines, but it's the counterfeit. In the cup, there's another agenda. They're wolves in sheep's clothing, so the sheep. Lots of pastors are sheep, but they've got a wolf's heart. How do you detect them? Well, that's another study. You'll know them by the fruits, not by the suits, not by their power, not by the anointing. You don't judge a man of God by his anointing. Most people think that Satan was the anointed cherub. Anointed means chosen for God's purpose. Cyrus, that despot, was God's anointed. God called him Cyrus, mine anointed, but he was a wicked man. It means he was chosen for God's purpose to send the people back. So it's no big deal if you're anointed. It's whether you can show the life of Christ. Have you got the fruit? Because the devil can't love. He's got no compassion. He's arrogant. He can't show humility because he's proud. It's the fruit you look for in a man of God. Anyway, I'm getting off the point. So, Babylon, the false woman, and it embraces all religions, including Christianity. Christianity as a religion is pagan. The Catholic Church invited all the pagan doctrines in. The higher the church, the more demons they've got round it, the gargoyles. And they bury the dead in the church, don't they? That's an abomination. So the king of Babylon will be a type of the Antichrist. Nebuchadnezzar was a type of the Antichrist. Whenever it's the king of Babylon, it's the Antichrist. Well, Christians who believe that Satan is Lucifer. 99% of Christians I've met, because Isaiah 6 mentions Lucifer. It's only mentioned once in the Bible, the word Lucifer. But they mix and match. In Isaiah 6, it's a proverb against the king of Babylon. And I've shown in previous studies that the king of Babylon, it represents the Antichrist. Whoever's king of the church, the counterfeit church, like the popes or the Caesars or whatever, they're Antichrist. It's a spirit. John said, you've already got Antichrist. You know, in the Bible, it's never the Antichrist. There's no definite article. In the King James, it never says the Antichrist. It's always a small a, because it's a spirit. There will be a final man, an Antichrist, but the spirit, Caesar was Antichrist. The pharaohs were Antichrist. They're the counterfeit religion. All those statues of Babylon, the Medes and the Persians and the Greeks and the Roman and where we are now, the head of that is always Antichrist. There'll be a man finally, of course. So they mix up Isaiah 6 with Ezekiel 28, where it talks about the prince and the king of Tyre. But they're different people. Isaiah 6 is a proverb against the king of Babylon, if you read it, and Ezekiel is a proverb against the king of Tyre. So the king of Tyre can't be the same as the king of Babylon. They can't represent different people, can they? Like I've shown that, you know, Egypt is a type of the world, and Pharaoh's the god of this world, and Antichrist, king of Babylon. So before we look at the prince and the king of Tyrus, I want to look at the city. That's what this study is about. That's just a preamble. So if I've confused you, that's all right. We've got a whole 5 studies to look at it. So let's look at this city, because it's the king of Tyre. So what does the city represent? Well, Tyrus was full of Canaanites. When Israel took the land, it was full of the giants, the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Hivites, the Jebusites, the Girgashites, and they were all giants, all mixture of the seed angels mating with women, that abomination that God hates. He hates hybrid. The mixture. God is pure, which means no mixture. It's interesting. Do you know Jezebel came from that area? God sent Elijah to the widow in that area under Tyrus. The Syrophoenician woman that Jesus healed, she was a Canaanite, she was from there. So there's lots of references in the Bible to this city. Let's look at it. Tyrus ruled the seas. We know that. I'm going to look at some scriptures in a minute. But Tyrus ruled the seas, that's the first point. So we're not looking at Tyrus in history. What does it represent now? Because I can show you what Babylon is now. I can show you what Egypt is now. It's the world system, Satan, the god of this world. But what does Tyrus represent now? How has it come through history? Well, it's the city that rules the seas. Because Tyrus rules the seas. And they controlled all the commerce, the precious metals, materials and spices. And Tyrus traded in all precious commodities and minerals of the earth. You know, the Phoenicians traded with everyone. They traded with Great Britain. They came to Cornwall, the tin mines, the tin and copper. The Phoenicians came and took them. And Spain, they went all over the world. They were a seafaring nation. It's interesting. You know, there's a maritime law. I don't know if you've heard it. The law of the seas, the maritime law. It's very, very powerful. And the International Maritime Organisation is based in London, which is significant. Because don't forget, Britain rule the waves. And this organisation is tasked with developing rules and standards on shipping. You know that there's millions and billions of tons of cargo travelling around the world. From China to England and China to Europe, and oil, and there's millions of tons that are travelling all the time. But they're governed by a separate law, a maritime law, and you can't get into countries without this law. It's very, very strong. People don't realise about it. It's quite interesting, and I don't want to get into it. But the UK has a major maritime power and a strong overarching role in the development and maintenance of the laws of the sea. And seas, what do they represent in the Bible? They represent nations. Let me bring you some scriptures. Everything I say I'll bring scriptures for. All right, I've said things, but I'll bring scriptures later. Isaiah 23 verse 3. And by great waters, the seed of Sion, the harvester of the river, is her revenue, and she is a mart of nations. This is talking about Tyrus. A mart. Do you know what a mart is? It's the gain from merchandise. That's what a mart is. It's the gain, the profit from merchandise. So Walmart, you've heard of Walmart, haven't you? Well, that's the wealth gained by the Waltons. The family who own it are called the Waltons. So it's Walmart. That's why they use the word mart. It's the profit from trading, Walmart. So Ezekiel 27 verse 3. And say unto Tyrus, O thou that art situated at the entry of the sea. So it's a seaport. So it'll be a seaport, won't it? Wherever, you know, it's migrated, because Babylon, just to show you the migration of these nations, Babylon was situated in Iraq, wasn't it? Babylon. But, you know, Babylon in Jesus' days, or just after, I believe was in Turkey. Because John wrote to the 7 churches in Asia. And they all had Babylon in them. They've left the first love. You've got Jezebel. You've got greedy Balaam in the church, and all the things. It's saying Babylon's in the church, so the headquarters moved there. Then they maybe moved to Rome, I don't know. But it moves in history. But it's the same system, the same spirit. Now that are situated at the ends of the sea, which are to merchants of the people for many isles. Thus saith the Lord, O Tyrus, thou hast said, I am perfect beauty. Ezekiel 27 verse 25. The ships of Tarshish did sing in thee. I think that's Spain. They traded with Spain. The ships of Tarshish did sing in thee in thy market, and thou wast replenished and made very glorious in the midst of the sea. A glorious nation, known all over the world for the trade and the shipping. Psalm 65, verse 7. Which stilleth the noise of the seas, the noise of their waves, and the tumult of the people. Isaiah 17, verse 12. Talking about the same thing. Woe to the multitude of many people, which make a noise like the noise of the seas. I'm showing that Tyrus was the king of the seas, and that seas are representative of people. So he ruled the world. If you rule the seas, you rule the nations. Like the noise of the seas, and to the rushing of nations that make a rushing like the rushing of mighty waters. So in the Bible, seas are nations. Isaiah 23:8. Who had taken this counsel against Tyre, the crowning city, whose merchants are princes, whose traffickers are the honourable of the earth. So Tyrus was a great trading nation. They ruled the seas and they were a great trading nation. But there's always a religious aspect. Ezekiel 27 verse 7. Fine linen. Fine linen in the Bible is the righteousness of the saints. In Revelation, who are these who are clothed in white linen? And he says, I don't know. He said the white linen is the righteousness of the saints. Well, this is Tyrus, so it's a counterfeit. Broidered work from Egypt was thou which spreadeth forth by thy sail. Blue and purple. Those are the royal regal colours of the tabernacle, aren't they? The priesthood. Blue and purple. From the isles of Elisha, which was covered thee. So can you see it's got this religious attitude as well? It's not Babylon, but there's always a connection. Revelation 19:8. This is the bride of Christ, and to her was granted that she shall be arrayed in fine linen, clean and white, for the fine linen is the righteousness of the saints. All right, if you don't know, I'm quoting the Bible. I often quote it in my text, but there's the text. So Tyrus has fine linen and blue and purple. It's a counterfeit of something, isn't it? And it can't be a counterfeit of the church, because that's Babylon. And it's all about trade, unlike Babylon that's religious. This is all about commerce, trade. Number 3, it's got a Masonic influence. You know, the city was connected to the Masons with their occult wisdom and sacred measurements and beauty of the buildings. Solomon hired the craftsmen, the masons from Tyre to build the temple of God. That's unbelievable. Hiram, king of Tyrus. And if you know anything about the masons, they're big on Hiram and the Solomon's temple, aren't they? When you go into it, it's based on Solomon's temple. They even have the pillars. Whenever you see a Masonic thing, it's got the 2 pillars and the arch above, and it's Boaz and Jason, isn't it? The 2 pillars that Solomon built. And they use it. And they've got the King James Bible on the pulpit in the Masonic temples. Because the mysteries of the occult are in the same book. Did you know that? When you join the Orange Order, they swear on the King James Bible. The Masons have the King James Bible. Albert Pike and those people well up in the Masons, they say all the mysteries in there because there's the truth and the counter-truth in the same book. That's amazing, isn't it? The dead letter killeth, Paul said it, the dead letter kills. It's the Spirit that gives life. There's more false quotes out of the Bible than true, isn't there? There's more wrong doctrine out of the Bible than true doctrine because you can read into it. Whatever we look at, they look at the other side. It's amazing. And they say that the secrets are hidden in the Bible. They say that, the Masons, and they're occult. It's amazing. Why do you think Satanists and witches wear a cross? They wear a cross, don't they? Those rock stars, they're Satanists and yet they wear a cross. It's funny, isn't it? It's the counter. Everything is dual. If you look a bit confused, then a lion represents Jesus. Is the lion of the tribe of Judah. Oh no, it's the devil going around like a roaring lion. See, there's two sides. The cup of blessing, the communion. It's the cup of blessing, isn't it? Yeah, it's the cup of devils. Read Corinthians 1, Corinthians 10. Paul says, can you take the cup of the Lord and the cup of devils? Judas had the same cup as the 11 disciples. They took the cup of blessing. He took the cup of devils. Because when Jesus dipped it and gave it him, Satan entered him. So what had he drunk? It's scary. It's scary. Don't be frightened. Ask God to reveal the truth. Because people are getting error. In the last days, there's false prophets all over quoting the Bible, leading people into error. Satan himself quoted the Bible to Jesus, didn't it? You see, it's not what's true. Jesus is the truth. He's the word. This isn't the word. This is the alphabet on paper. Jesus is the word. If you don't know the author, you'll never understand the book. You'll get the alternative. What did Paul say? These false prophets, they've turned the truth of God into a lie. It's not what you say, it's who says it. When Satan spoke what was true to Jesus, you shall not live by bread alone, turn the stones into bread and you won't dash your foot against a stone. Satan was quoting from Psalms verbatim. It wasn't twisted, it was right. But it was a lie because it was the intent to deceive. A lie is you can tell the truth with the intent to deceive it, and it becomes a lie. Truth is what God speaks. A lie is what the devil speaks, even if it's true, because his aim is to deceive you. He turned the truth of God into a lie to damn Jesus. Jesus says, get thee behind me, Satan, I'm not having none of that. But use the word. So people who quote the word, don't be overawed by people. Yeah, but he quoted the Bible. So what? So did the devil. You need to know the author. Get to know the author is paramount. In the last days, if you don't know the author, you'll be deceived. Satan comes as an angel of light. Therefore, it's no wonder if his ministers, this is Paul I'm quoting, if his ministers transform themselves as ministers of righteousness. They're preaching right messages. But the aim is to deceive you. They're covetous, they're proud, they've got another agenda, they're building their empire. That makes them false prophets. That's not in the sermon, by the way, I just got carried away. Where am I up to? The Masonic influence. Yeah, Ezekiel 27 verse 9 and 10. The ancients of Gebel and the wise men therefore were in the wisdom is connected to Tyrus, very, very wise, we'll see it. All the ships of the sea with their mariners were in thee to occupy thy merchandise. They of Persia and Lud and of foot were in thine army, the men of war, they hang the shield and the helmet in thee, they set forth thy comeliness. Next time you go to London, go to the Square Mile. That's the city of London. Go have a look at the temple, the Masonic temple. It's amazing. And Ezekiel 27:3, and say unto Tyrus, O thou that art situated at the entry of the seaport, which art a merchant of the people for many isles, thus saith the Lord of God, O Tyrus, thou hast said I am of perfect beauty. And there's a military part as well, Ezekiel 27:10. They of Persia and Lut and foot were in thine army. We've read this, haven't we? They were men of war. They hang their shield and helmet in thee. They set forth thy comeliness. But I think one of the most important aspects of Tyrus, the city, is the wisdom. It's very much connected, and its king. The wisdom and beauty. And the success they bring. Wisdom and beauty always bring success in this world, don't they? And it's corrupted the empire that ruled the seas. So Tyre's not the counterfeit Jerusalem, Babylon is. One's a symbol of the bride and one's a symbol of the whore. We've covered that. But Tyre certainly has connection. There's always connecting. Well, the prophecies in Ezekiel tell of the fall of Tyre. We're not talking about the king of Tyre that people think he's Satan. We're talking about the city. And Tyre was destroyed and razed to the ground. Alexander the Great fulfilled much of that prophecy. But not all of it's going to happen again, because like Babylon, it keeps rising out of history. So Ezekiel prophesied that Tyre would be destroyed, and it was completely destroyed. He made Tyre was like an island, wasn't it? And he made a causeway across to destroy it, and he completely destroyed it. But you know, you can't destroy something spiritual. So God dispersed Babylon, but it rose again because it's a spirit. You know, you can destroy physical things, but you can't stop a spirit. God destroyed all the world in a flood, but that spirit of Antichrist came through after Noah. Noah got drunk, and his son got cursed, his grandson, didn't he? Cursed be Canaan. So when God destroys it, you can't destroy a spirit. It's there in the world. Satan's there in the world. God can't destroy Satan till the very end. So when he destroys Satan's system, that's not the end of Satan. It's a big blow, and it may take him 100, 1,000 years to come back to where he is. It's 4,500 years since the Tower of Babel, and we're only now getting to one language, aren't we? English will be the de facto language. When you go to China, the educated people learn English. Educated people in England don't learn Chinese. That'll be the one world language, won't it? That's why the Bible was first translated in English, because God knew it'd be the one world language. So we've got the original Bible and not the, as I call them, the perversions, the hundreds of, you know, perverted translations. So it's destroyed, but it's going to rise again. Where is it now? Isaiah 23, verse 15 to 17. It shows that 70 years, let me read it. And it shall come to pass in that day that Tyre shall be forgotten 70 years. So it's going to be wiped out, it'll be forgotten. People won't even know. And it's been a mighty empire. It ruled the seas in those times. The period we're looking at in world history, they ruled the seas. They traded all over the world. Tyre shall be forgotten 70 years. Well, that's symbolic. According to the days of one king, after the end of 70 years, shall Tyre sing as a harlot. Take a harp, go about the city, thou harlot, thou hast been forgotten. Make sweet melody, sing many songs, that thou mayest be remembered. And it shall come to pass after the 70 years that the Lord will visit Tyre, and she shall return to her hire, and shall commit fornication with all the kingdoms of the world upon the face of the earth. You can't get rid of the spirit of Tyrus. God says, I'm going to destroy you, but after a period, 70 years, that must be symbolic. I've not got revelation on that, how long it is. But he said, after 70 years, she'll return to her hire and commit fornication with all the kingdoms of the world upon the face of the earth. Every nation will come under Tyrus again, the spirit of it. That's amazing, isn't it? You know, the Bible's very historical, not hysterical, historical. It's amazing. It's more factual. History's been rewritten by the victors, hasn't it? You know, you don't know the truth about history because it's been rewritten. But the Bible has the true history. And we can see. Well, present Tyre will be a worldwide system of commerce, won't it? Occult wisdom, finance, military, control of the seas, the nations. Well, Babylon's the religious system of Antichrist, embracing all modern religions. That's the woman who rides the beast. But Tyre is the commercial system controlling world resources. Because of this, they control the politics. If you can control the commodities of the world, you can control the dictators, can't you? You can bring a dictator down by pulling his credit rating, AA, down to a naught or something, and nobody will invest in them. They pulled the plug on Greece, didn't they? In Ireland a few years ago, they went bankrupt, had to build billions of dollars from the IMF. They did the same to Spain. They could just pull the plug and bankrupt any nation. They control it because they have the commodities. Well, what did Henry Kissinger say? He's a Satanist. Henry Kissinger is a Mason. He said, if you control oil, you control the nations. You control the food and you control people. People will do anything if they're starving. You'll give everything away. You'll give your house away. You'll sell your children. They did it in Israel. You'll do anything to survive. You'll become cannibals. People who've been in plane crashes and that, and there's dead people and they're surviving. They'll resort to cannibalism. I'm not criticising them. The desire to live is so strong in all of us. The fight for life. Nobody wants to die. And you've got people when you deprive them of food. And oil, that means electricity. The hydro, that means, no internet, no entertainment. People will go mad. I remember when I was a draftsman and there was a newspaper strike and people didn't get the Daily Mirror and the Sun to look at page 3 and all the draftsmen were going mad. That was just the newspapers. They were in trouble all day because they couldn't look at the soccer on the back page and the naked women on page 3. It was crazy. That's a newspaper. Imagine the internet went down and there's no banking. The whole world relies on the internet. Everything would collapse. You'd get no electricity because they're all run by computers. The electricity grid, the banking system, the gas, everything's run by... Your car's run by computers, isn't it? The modern cars are run by computers. I remember a man telling me he was a wealthy man, he bought a top-of-the-line Mercedes. And he'd only had it a week and he couldn't start it at the garage. He'd filled it with petrol and he rung them up and he said, just go and have a coffee. And come back and he went and had a coffee. When he came back, they rang him and he said, it's fixed. He said, what do you mean it's fixed? They did it by computer. The Wi-Fi in the car, it picked up the signal, they looked at it and did it remotely. When I'm abroad, I've been in America and my wife texted me and said, Maurice, the computer's gone funny, I can't work it. I said, go on TeamViewer. And I control the computer in our office from America and fix it for her. And she carries on doing the video editing. Is that right, love? So that's amazing. So they can fix... So if the computers went down, can you see, we're all slaves. We don't realise it. We think we're free, but we're not. The touch of a button and we'd all be slaves. Well, that's what Henry Kissinger said. And I quoted that when I first did this series 20 years ago. This is the third time I preached. I keep updating it. And so Tyrus is the system of the beast, the one world system. Does anywhere fit the prophecies in this invisible empire? Well, I can't go back, but I did a study and I showed that the City of London, the square mile, is one of the trinity of city-states for the one world system. The Vatican City is the religious. It doesn't belong to Italy. It's a city-state. Washington, D.C. doesn't belong to America. It's not part of America. You know what D.C. stands for? Yeah. District of Columbia. It's not one of the states. There's no state called Columbia, is there? It's a district of Columbia. It's part of Maryland and part of another, Virginia, I think, or whatever. But it's a district of Columbia. And it doesn't belong to America. It's got its own police force, its own Lord Mayor. City of London doesn't belong to Great Britain. The square mile, the City of London does not belong to Great Britain. It's a city-state. They have their own police force. As soon as you drive in London, all over the country, the bobbies have checkered, black and white checkers on the helmet, don't they? As soon as you go into the city of London, all the policemen have red and white checkers. They don't have the English coat of arms. Our coat of arms has a lion and a dragon on it, doesn't it? A lion and a unicorn. You go in the City of London, the crest is everywhere, 2 dragons on the shield. They have their own Lord Mayor. The Lord Mayor of London is not the Lord Mayor of the City of London. Nobody knows who the Lord Mayor of the City of London. It goes back to William the Conqueror. He did a deal with... I won't go into it. But it's a city-state. And that controls the commerce of the world. All the banking from London, all the insurance companies, Lloyd's of London, all in London. Well, do you think London could be the Tyrus? I think it could when I first did this. 20, 30 years ago. I think maybe it's moved to the United Nations now. But I want to show you the progression, and I think I've got a good case that it was London, the British Empire. You know our national song of the Empire, Rule Britannia. Britannia rule the waves. That's not by chance. Why did we do that? Do you know we rule the waves? The British Empire controlled the seas like Tyrus. We control the Straits of Gibraltar, Panama Canal. You see, the shipping, billions of tons and thousands of ships a week have to pass through the Panama Canal, have to pass through the Straits of Gibraltar, have to pass through these straits because it saves them going all around Africa. And we controlled every gateway to the nations. The British Empire controlled every strait. Straits of Gibraltar, Panama Canal, Suez Canal. That was vital. We'd got to war to save that because we controlled it. And you have to pay to go through. Every ship has to go through maritime law. Let me read you Rule Britannia. When Britain first at heaven's command, they're claiming that God set us up. When Britain first at heaven's command arose from out the azure main, this were the charter of the land, and the guardian angels sung this strain. Not God's angels. Rule Britannia, Britannia will rule the waves. Britain never will be slaves. We'll rule the world, we'll conquer. Did you notice? I used to think it said Britannia rules the waves. It doesn't say Britannia rules the waves. It says Britannia rule the waves. It's a prayer to the goddess Britannia. Britannia rule. They're calling on the goddess. Isis is the same goddess. Diana of the Ephesians. It's the same, the Statue of Liberty. It's all the same goddess. Columbia, when you see the film start, Columbia, there's a woman holding the torch. Columbia. She's a goddess. That's why they call it the District of Columbia, the goddess, the District of the goddess Columbia. Liberty enlightening the world, not with the gospel. It's an occult Masonic statue. The Masons of France gave it to America. They gave a gift to America. The Statue of Liberty was made in France by the Masons, and they gave it to America. Interesting enough, America built the base, which is very significant, but I won't go into that. The nations not so blessed as thee, the second-class nations, the one we ruled, the ones we raped, India, Africa. I've been to 12 African nations. It's pathetic. It's pathetic to see them. I asked them in Uganda, I said, you've had 50 years of independence and you're full of diamonds and gold and uranium and cobalt. Why aren't you rich? We still rule them. The West still rule. We just rate them for the diamonds. Africa is the richest continent in the world, and it's the poorest because we take all the minerals. When I was in Sierra Leone, the government just did a deal with London Mining, and they guaranteed to give them all the diamonds for the next 90 years, which will keep the people poor. I was there. I was driving along the railway. There's the only one railway in Sierra Leone that I know of, and it goes from the diamond mines to the port. And Sierra Leone doesn't even own the port. London Mining own the port. Goes straight, the diamonds go straight there. Did you see the film Blood Diamond? Well, I was there in Kono, and I saw it. They're still griddling with no shoes on the feet, begging for diamonds, and they go straight to Antwerp, diamond capital of the world, to get fashion. The nations not so blessed as thee must in their turn to tyrants fall, while thou shalt flourish great and free, the dread and envy of them all. We'll rule you. We'll rule the world. Rule Britannia. Britannia rule the waves. Britain never will be slaves. Still more majestic thou shalt rise. This is an arrogant empire chant, isn't it? But it's speaking to the goddess, Britannia. You know the penny? Can you remember pennies? Mm-hmm. What was on it? Britannia sat with the pug like trident, yeah. Ruling the seas. That's Britannia, the goddess. Ruling Great Britain, ruling the seas. We rule the sun never set on the British Empire. Still more majestic thou shalt rise, more dreadful from each foreign stroke, will smite the nations with a rod of iron. We want to rule the world. Churchill said, the empire was acquired by the sword, and it will be maintained by the sword. That's what Churchill said. We did it, we got the empire by the sword, we went and plundered, and we'll maintain it by plundering. The haughty tyrants ne'er shall tame all their attempts to bend thee down, but will arouse thy generous flame, but work their woe and thy renown. To thee belongs the rural reign, thy cities shall with commerce shine, and thou shalt be the subject maid, and every shore its circles thine. We'll control the world. The muses still with freedom found shall to thy happy coast repair. Blessed isle, which matchless beauty crowned. Don't forget Tyrus, beauty, wisdom. And many hearts guard their fair. Rule Britannia, Britannia rule the waves. Goddess, be our goddess, rule the waves. It's a command. Well, she's certainly done that over the last few centuries. The City of London still controlled. The empire's bigger than ever, you know. It didn't go because we lost India and those. We went from overt control to covert control. We still control them. Or else they'd be rich. They've got all the world's minerals. Why are they not rich? Because we still control them. The City of London controls America through the Virginia Company. I could go into it, but... So I've covered that. Britannia is another name for ISIS, the City of London. It's interesting, you know, if you look at a map of the Thames and close up, the River Thames, part of its course, its name is Isis, the goddess Isis. Part of the River Thames is Isis, after a Latin name, original Thamesis. Just as a matter of interest, the Royal Mint makes coins for 60 countries, and it's now got a new system called ISIS. Why do they use these acronyms? Do you think it's by chance? It stands for Integrated Secure Identification Systems. But why that? You could use 100 words, but they want that ISIS, the god. I hope I'm not boring you, but what about Land of Hope and Glory? That's the other great national anthem, isn't it? When I watch the rugby, Land of Hope and Glory, it's a majestic song and it can bring tears to your eyes and it gets that nationalistic spirit going, doesn't it? When 60, 80,000 people are singing it. Have you ever read it? Dear Land of Hope, thy hope is crowned. God make thee mightier yet. It's all about empire building. On sovereigns bowed, beloved renown, once more thy crown is set. Thine equal laws by freedom gained have ruled thee well and long. By freedom gained, by truth maintained, thine empire shall be strong. It's all about the empire. Land of hope and glory, mother of the free. We enslaved the world. We controlled India, we controlled most of Africa. The sun never set on our empire. We controlled them as slaves. We put our people there. Cecil Rhodes went to South Africa and butchered them for the diamond mines, the Kimberley diamond mines. They named it, the country after him, Rhodesia, after Cecil Rhodes. He was a Mason. He was into the occult. He wanted Britain to control the whole world. I've read his writings. He was out and out a one-worlder. Mother of the free, how shall we extol thee who were born of thee? Wider still and wider shall thy bounds be set. God who made thee mighty, make thee mightier yet. You see, Christians are naive. They think, oh, they acknowledge God. Yeah, like they do on the $1 bill, in God we trust. On the money. It's the money they trust, not God. It's the pyramid on it in the dollar note. Satan's the God of this world. When people talk about God, don't think it's my God. God doesn't want to make empires great, does he? And control people like that. Is that the end of it, Joni? Yeah. Well, let me come to an end. Well, Tyrus is going to fall. The fall of Tyre is very similar to the king of Tyre, and it's not a coincidence. Ezekiel 26:2. Remember, Tyrus' wisdom was built the temple of God. That's amazing. I can't get my head around that. Solomon started so good, didn't he? And he ended up in witchcraft. He had so many wives. His foreign wives got him to serve their gods, the gods of Zidon. They passed their own children through the fire. Solomon must have sacrificed his own children to demons. The wisest man became the world's biggest fool. And witchcraft writings have always looked to Solomon when he backslid their writings. The Star of David, so-called, it's not the Star of David, the Magen David. It was called Solomon's Seal in witchcraft for hundreds and hundreds of years. And they decided to make it popular. It's nothing to do with Israel, it's an occult symbol. The menorah should be on the flag of Israel, not the six-pointed star. That's occult. Hitler was going to do a deal and save, forgive me because I don't know the figure, we'll say 10,000 Jews at $50 each or something. He was going to buy them off to save them. And he said, no, let them die in the gas chambers. One cow in Israel, in Palestine, is worth all the Jews in Poland. And he let them go. That's Theodor Herzl, the Zionist. The Zionists are occult. They've taken Israel politically. I love Israel, but I hate the Zionists because they counterfeit. It's the synagogue of Satan that it mentions in Revelation. It said, you've seen those that say the Jews and they're not. They're the synagogue of Satan. We love God's people, Israel, and there's true Israel there. But modern Jewry is Edom, who hates Jacob. Esau have I loved. Sorry, Jacob have I loved, Esau have I hated. Esau hates Jacob. He's trying to get the birthright back. And the Zionists will put the Antichrist in Jerusalem. The counterfeit always comes first, doesn't it? The Antichrist first will set up in Jerusalem, then Jesus will come, the real Christ. So when somebody says Jesus has come and is in Jerusalem ruling, you know it's the false, because the false comes first. Saul, the man of the flesh first, then David, the man after God's own heart. The counterfeit always comes first. So you know, when they say Jesus is here, Jesus is there, don't go. Ezekiel 26 verse 2. Son of man, because that Tyrus has said against Jerusalem, ha, she's broken that was the gates of the people. She's turned unto me. I shall be replenished now. She is laid waste. Now God's destroyed Jerusalem. I can rise again. And 27 verse 32. And in their wailings they shall take up a lamentation for thee. This is the fall of Tyrus. And lament over, they say, what city is like Tyrus that destroyed in the midst of the seas? For me, the city of London fits perfectly, Tyre, but I feel it's probably moved to the United Nations now. But I'm talking about the spirit of it. Can you see the city that rules the nations and the trade and that is Tyrus, a modern Tyrus. But we'll look at the king of Tyrus and the prince of Tyrus in the next study. So, Lord, I pray that you'll help those who are watching this video, Lord, not to get confused. I tried my best to explain it, but it's hard to put years of study into a short talk. I just pray, Lord, that you'll take away the things that will confuse people and give them revelation, Lord, that they may understand what's happening in these days. And the spirit of Babylon and Tyrus, I ask it in your name, Father. Amen.